Greetings, Shaniacs. Today we're talking about elephant herpes. How great is that? Just take a break from your day, take a break from it all, and just listen to a conversation about elephant herpes for a while? Are you kidding me? It's amazing. Lo and behold, you might actually learn a few things about how life actually works, too, from a bottom-up approach to understanding this existence, all while getting to learn about fun elephants and weird herpes that plague their babies. Incredible. I love this show. I love people that love this show. I've just started finalizing some things, so I get to start spreading the word and telling people that this show exists, but no one knows about this, right? I sent like one email and like a social media post or two like 2 months ago, back in January, and I've been so busy with my special. I've been still recording these, but I've taken zero time to do anything else and tell anyone that this exists. Part of that's part of a plan is as the special is released, I kind of want to have everything all together and do all the PR all at once and you know, consolidate all my efforts into getting the biggest bang for my buck. Sure, there's a little bit of strategy here beyond just my stubbornness about doing things that I don't like doing, like making social media posts and stuff. But I'm just so grateful that the Fort Worth Zoo had me, and I get to have amazing conversations like this. It's the sort of stuff that makes it worthwhile to update my link tree and website, which I did recently. So proud of myself. The sorts of things that I cannot normally get myself to do, so that I get to have more conversations like this in the future and then share them with insanely curious people like yourselves. And I'm also so many things. I'll save most of it for the end of the show so we can jump right into this conversation. But I'm in Phoenix right now. I'm kind of house sitting for a few weeks for a very generous friend who's going to be on the show coming up soon and is out of town, and I'm planning. I'm in Phoenix planning the feast. More on that after the show. Got some real exciting things coming together. Please block off your calendar for January 14th next year, and probably the surrounding 2 weekends where you can pick and choose. There's going to be like kind of an a la carte, free-flowing sort of situation happening outside of just the January 14th, where we'll have like an actual, you know, ticketed event. I have the most mind-blowing venue that I just went and looked at all these spaces with this amazing promoter that I got to know a couple years ago and stuff, and we're working on this. So excited. So many things going on. I can't contain myself, and let alone string together clear. You'd think I'd put together like an outline or something like that before these intros. But I like going off the cuff a little bit. Couple plugs. We got Logan Keith, LoganRayKeith.com. is the person that puts together the mix for this show, so that I can record, so that I can do this mobily and record with you know, simple mobile equipment and do this on the fly. You know, there's a reason podcasters have like these studios with soundproof this and that, and I've messed with all that equipment for years, and I ultimately wanted something a little more organic, and I can already feel it making these conversations like the one you're going to hear today be just a lot more loose and conversational, and you can tell my guests are a little more comfortable than in the kind of more professional-ish studio setting. And part of making that possible, though still being bearable to listen, is to have an amazing audio engineer. So if you check out LoganRayKeith.com, you'll see if you're in the market for any sound design, any kind of sound or video editing, music composition, anything like that, reach out to Logan. He's amazing. I met him through my friend Dan Cummins, who he does his podcasts. And let's see. Oh yeah. And speaking of artists that I want to support that are involved with this show, Randal Roberts, Denver-based artist who's keep an eye on his site, by the way, because he's doing some tours with some big live painting events and stuff. Live painting's really where it's at, and such a cool way to connect with artists. But he's the one that did the artwork for the show, which is an evolving piece. So as I just updated ShaneMoss.com recently, if you go on, you'll see January, February, March, the 3 evolving pieces, the 3 of 12 pieces for the year as the Inshanely Curious painting slowly becomes a masterpiece over the course of the year. I think it's such a fun, cool project, and in an age of AI and all of that sort of thing, people like. I'm kind of. I think part of the art form isn't showing the process is part of the art, and so it's part of how we came up with this idea of capturing a piece over time. So check out Randal Roberts as well. I should have asked them for like offer codes or something like that, but I didn't even know I was going to be saying these words out of my mouth right now. Just love plug-in artists and people that I'm collaborating with. So check those guys out and enjoy today's episode. Elephant herpes! Let's learn something. Well, thank you for joining me, Sarah Cannizzo. Cannizzo. I keep on. This is when you tell it, don't screw it up, and then you get the wrong anchor in your head, and then I was like, I said it like a Snoop Dogg slang. Don't do that again. So of course it was the first. So we're here at the Fort Worth Zoo. In this lovely event space, they're setting up for a father-daughter dance. This is pretty snazzy. And we're going to talk about elephants and maybe some infectious disease. Yes. That's not the right disposition to be like, we're going to talk about infectious disease, but it seems like you have some really promising things going on here that are that warrant excitement.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do here?
Yeah. So I am one of the associate veterinarians. I've been here for about 7.5 years, and I'm a boarded specialist in zoological medicine. And actually, yesterday I just became a certified veterinary acupuncturist. So that's exciting.
Congratulations!
And, thank you. I've been working for it for about 1.5 years, so I'm very excited. So as an associate veterinarian here, I take care of all of the animals. I mean, there's no, one vet does one species, one vet does another, but we all have our own areas that we tend to specialize in or manage. Just there's incoming shipments and outgoing shipments, and we have a lot of conservation programs, and then we have the elephant program. So I'm one of the main vets for the elephant program here at the Fort Worth Zoo. And then in that capacity, I spend a lot of time thinking about this herpes virus called elephant endothelial tropic herpes virus, or EEHV. It's a major impact on elephants in human care and in the wild.
Okay, that's so many things. That's what's the expression about that veterinarians have about the difference between doctors and veterinarians? Is that
Real
doctor?
doctors treat more than one species. Yes. Yeah, we do it all. Insects, fish, mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, everything.
So since this isn't what I was, we're going to be talking about the elephant herpes, which is, I think that's what the title of the episode will have to be.
Okay.
We live in a clickbait world,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's we're doing the best we can. But since you just got certified, this is very exciting. Could you talk a little bit about animal acupuncture?
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that you can do acupuncture on animals, but it's actually becoming a bigger component of pet animal care and horse animal care. And there are a few certified veterinary acupuncturists in the zoo world. One of the vets that used to work here, that actually believe you interviewed for a podcast a couple of years ago, Dr. Tara Riley. When she was here, she was certified, and it was beneficial to have somebody on staff. And then she left to pursue other opportunities, and we felt that void that we didn't have someone. So we would occasionally call in other local acupuncturists, but we realized it was probably better to have somebody on grounds. I can do it kind of whenever I'm here.
That's such a call to get. So just a human acupuncturist gets a call one day.
No, a veterinary acupuncturist.
Oh, that's a fairly.
It's all veterinarians, and it's an additional certification that we do.
But people are getting their dogs and cats acupuncturists?
Oh, yeah.
I guess I didn't realize that. See, because it would have been about 5 years ago or something that I had chatted about this. So this isn't my first rodeo talking about animal acupuncture, but I thought it was an important thing to bring up again, just because it's such a interesting reminder of just how much care goes into animals at zoos. And it was, if I'm remembering right, a big one of the reasons for needing acupuncture is that many of the animals at the zoo live kind of unnaturally long lives, and the spines start fusing together over time. And
they get a lot of age-related diseases, kidney disease, arthritis, and those are great opportunities for acupuncture. So, having that, we just want to be able to do as much as we can for all of the animals at the zoo, and this is another tool in the toolkit.
Do you ever, I was just talking about Barbara Natterson on the last episode, who is this, she was a cardiologist that got called into a zoo ages ago and started writing books about seeing the, what can be learned from doctors and veterinarians. And it seems like such an opportunity for senior care when you have all these other species experiencing these incredibly long lifespans. Is going to be the same thing that you're seeing in nursing homes.
And I think a lot of the problems and issues are similar. And and again, it goes back, we want our animals to be comfortable. We want to do as much as we can to have them live good lives and address pain and appetite, and making sure they're being able to live a really good life, a full life, for as long as we can. And I think acupuncture is a good way to do that. And it's just how I approach it with the different animals, because it's best if they can be awake, but we can also do it under anesthesia. So
amazing. Well, people can go to my old show, Here We Are, and go back a few years. I think December 2019, I had an episode about this. But I want to know all about elephants. And actually, can I make a couple predictions? This is what I like to do. I like to find out how wrong I am.
Okay.
From a professor. So you get a point for as many inaccuracies as I have. An animal virus or an elephant virus, I would think, because they're, if I'm looking at something from a virus perspective, like a very large social species seems like a jackpot to me. If I'm trying to replicate myself, it seems like one, you have a large body to proliferate in, and then if you have one that's a social species, then they're going to be more prone to. But how large are your average elephant herds?
So I think that can vary. Do you mean in like human care?
No, like in the wild. You know?
I think it just varies, and I don't know that I have a good answer for you.
I don't know is a great answer. Do you know do herds like intermingle?
Yeah, I mean they will intermingle.
Okay.
Like watering holes and that kind of thing.
So you got intermingling herds,
yes.
and then my guess is that you got some agriculture human impact limiting the size that this enormous animal is generally roaming around, and so now you're just, from a virus perspective, this is great if you can get all of your hosts together in a smaller spot. So this is probably becoming more and more of a problem in the natural world, but there's opportunities to offset it with
I wouldn't say that it's becoming more of a problem in the natural world. We do find it in free-ranging elephants, both in Africa and Asia. And it is a virus that can't be cultured. No one's been able to culture it. And until we had molecular diagnostics such as PCR or polymerase chain reaction, it wasn't diagnosed. So cases of elephants dying from it previously, it might have been missed, and it causes a lot of bleeding. So it could have looked like anthrax. It could have looked like clostridial diseases. And so it was probably missed before. So
when did PCR start being used?
In elephants, the sort of index case of EEHV in North America was 1999. And then the PCR has been used since probably early 2000s. And then they were able to, I think it was Gary Hayward's lab out of Johns Hopkins, that they were able to, finally start testing for it. And now there's a national herpes lab that does that. So I think I know certainly by like 2010, 2011, when I started to have read papers for it for my board certification.
And is this something that was first noticed in zoos, or is this
I think the first case that where people were like, oh, this is something, was again a case out of the National Zoo area in 1999. And then we've learned more and more and more and more about it. And we realized more cases, elephants were succumbing to it. But to take a step back, so it's a DNA virus, and you're right. So DNA viruses, they're pretty stable, and they evolve with animal species over millions of years. And it's in their best interest that their hosts, for the most part, stay alive, as opposed to RNA viruses. They travel very quickly and they mutate very fast, and they don't necessarily care if the host stays alive, and they're so infectious they just kind of move. DNA viruses, because they become part of the nucleus of the host, they hide in the body. And herpes virus in particular, it's herpes for life, right? So they stay in the body, and they...
I'm just picturing like a herpes in a hammock right now. They want like a chill, relax. Pick up their feet.
Yeah, and they do, right? They come into the body. So a good example in humans is chickenpox. And so before the chickenpox vaccine, you'd get chickenpox as a kid, and then the herpes virus would just hang out in your body in a ganglion, like a little nerve cell collection. And then at some point later in your adult life, maybe stress, maybe aging, it would pop out as shingles. And so that was essentially the same virus that you had as a kid as chickenpox. It was just hiding in your body, waiting for an opportune moment. It's been hanging out in its hammock, and then it's today's a good day to come back and cause some problems. And it comes out of its hammock, and it causes the rash and the nerve pain and all those problems.
Wow.
So, but by then, you've lived a good long life.
Yeah,
so it didn't kill you, as opposed to an RNA virus. that can sometimes be like quickly fatal because they're just going to jump from host to host to host.
Herpes is sneakier.
Mm-hmm.
How are they contracting it?
So they get it from other elephants. So most other elephants, they carry herpes viruses, and they get them, and then they carry them for life. And then
I mean, elephant in the room. Most people hear herpes and they think of STIs. Is it a?
It's not. No, it can't. I mean, I guess they can. It's shed in secretion, so ocular secretions. Probably in semen, in vaginal secretions, tears, saliva, trunk. We get it in trunk secretion. That's one of the way we monitor our herd is we put some saline into the trunk and then we ask them to blow it back into a bag and then we do PCR on that to see if they're shedding EEHV.
Man, you just opened up a whole. Well, I really want to talk about. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. I would like to. We can get back to this, or whichever way you want to take this. But I want to make sure that we talk about at some point the things that, especially with I imagine with a animal like an elephant, that you do at a zoo to help work with them to be involved in their own care.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that, or if you want to finish whatever thought first and then get back to that?
No, our elephant caretakers are very proactive and dedicated to working with the elephants to have the elephants participate in their own healthcare. We can't make an elephant to do something that it doesn't want to do, and so. But they're very smart, and they like to train and interact with their caretakers, and so you can very much train them to do, they're all trained for voluntary blood collection, they're trained for hand injections so we can give them their vaccines, they're trained to do these trunk washes every week. We also use that to screen for tuberculosis, and so we train them for eye exams, they're trained for rectal palpation, so we can give them fluids. The elephant.
What's an eye exam for an elephant?
Well, I mean, we take an ophthalmoscope, and we can hold it up to the eye, or we can take a slit lamp, which is basically a handheld microscope that an ophthalmologist would use. We have a veterinary ophthalmologist that consults with the zoo on cases, and she comes out and looks at all of our elephant eyes, every couple of years, just to make sure that they get, an eye exam by, a boarded ophthalmologist. So we really have them learn all these behaviors, and then, we do this just to be able to keep an eye on them. And when we get blood on our young elephants every week to monitor for EEHV, we get blood on our adult elephants every quarter, just to have a baseline. Something that's a little bit different with elephants than other mammals is that an elephant's own historical blood work is the best reference interval for that elephant's. It's best to interpret an elephant in the context of its own healthy blood work, as opposed to comparing their blood work to all other elephants. There's a lot of variation.
Is there a lot of genetic diversity in elephants, or
I can't answer that question because I'm a doctor and not
yeah. Sorry. Well, it's just like humans are one of the most homogeneous genetically. However many existing orangutans there are still in the world, 200 or whatever the number is, has more genetic diversity than all of humans. All of humans. So, but anyhow.
Yeah. So I can't. I'm not sure about that because that's outside my area of expertise.
Yeah.
But I know when I'm interpreting blood work in an elephant, it's best for me to look at that elephant's history when it's healthy. So say an elephant is acting abnormal and I get blood, the keepers get the blood and then they bring it to the lab and then we do a bunch of tests. And if I'm interpreting it, I'm going to look at the elephant's own historical, we call it reference interval, and then I'll compare it against that as sometimes with a lot of the other animals we use, if we get blood on a tiger, I can compare it to other tigers or even domestic cats. But elephants are one of the species that we kind of have to look at their own reference range. And so to that end, we get blood on them very regularly when they're healthy. So we build up a database of what every elephant should look like on their blood work.
So you can't just wait until they're sick or whatever. You have kind of these random but regular intervals. And so you know what the
and then our
deviations are.
Exactly. And our medical records system automatically calculates, you know, the mean and the median and the standard deviation, and then we can kind of look and be like, oh, you know, normally their white blood cell count is, you know, 12,000 to 15,000. And if it's a young elephant and it's suddenly 8,000, then my alarm bells are going off that it's EEHV. If it's an older animal and maybe it's a little high, and I'm like, oh, is there some infection or inflammation that we don't know about?
Do you ever get to play with the elephants? Is that
so? The official answer is no.
The official answer is no.
I get to participate in their training, and I get to do exams on them.
All right, but, no playing around.
It's not really like a play. You know, our elephant department's very busy. I'm very busy. You know, but I do enjoy. Sometimes, you know, we want to get the elephants. They're very used to their caretakers and less used to me. So in my mind, this is playing, but like I get to just go and be there when they're doing behaviors and when they're working with the elephants, just so that they get used to my presence, and then it's not so much stranger danger. But that's probably not what your vision of playing is.
Well, no, my vision, you know, Instagram like really ruins people's expectations for things, and probably gets us into all sorts of trouble with like, I could have an elephant for a pet. But because my vision, I don't spend much time on social media. Instagram, I sometimes use. I don't even have it on my phone. But if you see me post on something, it's probably some animal story, and I can't help myself. It's like a baby elephant that likes to like tumble around with a keeper or something and roll.
Try to sit on someone's lap.
Come on, just once I want a baby elephant to try to sit on me. That's just like dream come
I will tell you that they're
situation.
born over to like 250 pounds, 275 pounds.
You got to get a freshie then. You can, it can only.
And they grow very quickly. So yes,
I mean, it does. Every time I watch the video, I'm like, whoa, that looks sort of dangerous and also fun.
Yes. I see some of those posts too, or just like animals in general, and people are just like hanging out with these animals that I would consider best to belong in the wild or in zoos, and I'm like, oh, they're just hanging out near that lion. That's not something that I want to do.
Well, so when you're not unofficially wrestling baby elephants, how do you train an elephant to like take part in? Can you give me like a specific example, or maybe like a case study that would maybe represent kind of how this sort of training?
And again, it's not my area of expertise as the veterinarian, right? But we do talk to the elephant care staff, and like, these are the behaviors that this elephant needs to know. And then with EEHV, we want them to blood draws, or one of the voluntary blood draws are going to be one of the first things that we want. But they have to first establish the relationship with the elephant, and they kind of start with things like target training, and there's a set behaviors that elephant care staff use, particularly in the AZA accredited institutions. And in fact, there's a course called Principles of Elephant Managers that all elephant care staff have to attend at some point. And then they learn very similar behaviors and cues. So get along and that kind of thing. It's that way, no matter where the elephant goes, they're kind of used to the same cues, where in other species things might be trained differently, but in elephants it's pretty standardized. But we want to look in their mouths. We want them to line up and ideally present their ear and tolerate voluntary blood collection, because from the EEHV perspective, I want to be able to monitor that elephant for EEHV DNA in their blood and also antibodies as soon as I can, and certainly by a year old. So you've got a very young elephant and we're asking it to do We're asking it to participate, and our elephant care staff does an amazing job of working with them. And that's kind of the first thing from a medical perspective. But we also want to be able to take their temperatures to see if they have a fever. We want to get those trunk washes so we can see if they're shedding EEHV in their trunk. We want them to be hand injection trained so we can give them vaccines. Like Brazos, our 3-year-old elephant, got an experimental EEHV vaccine. So that was like monumental. And that was, we found out, it was in works for a while. And then we basically were told at the beginning of August that we were going to be able to get the vaccine at the end of August. And the keepers only had a couple weeks to train him to receive the vaccine voluntarily. So, he presented, the keeper stationed him in one of our technicians, our veterinary support manager was able to give him that injection. And then we did it again 3 weeks later. And then we were able to get blood so we can follow his antibody, like did that vaccine work? And did it provide immune response? So those are the kind of behaviors, and we want to be able to give them rectal fluids. I think I kind of mentioned that earlier. The elephant rectum absorbs really well, and so it's one way that we can give them medications and we can rehydrate them in a way. Like it's from, if you were to take...
You can rehydrate them?
Yeah, to a certain extent, you can just give them fluids via the rectum and they'll absorb it. They'll absorb what they need and then get rid of the rest. So it'll be a mainstay of treatment if we do have an elephant that has clinical EEHV or EEHV hemorrhagic disease. We will want to rehydrate them, and rectal fluids will be a big part of that.
How did that happen? Is that something that in nature is useful if you're swimming around? And it doesn't matter. That's fine.
It's a good. You have so many good questions.
This won't be the last elephant episode, so I'll get someone from different disciplines.
Yes. I can point you in the right direction.
So, what about? Could you tell me some of the challenges and opportunities specific to zoos compared to, say, trying to notice there's sick elephants in the wild, and what do you do about that?
Right. Well, we have a lot of opportunities with the elephants in human care because they have dedicated caretakers. For these young elephants that are susceptible to the EEHV HD, they are examined by their staff minimum once or twice a day, but really they're keeping an eye on them all day. Signs of EEHV hemorrhagic disease could be anything. It could be nonspecific, lack of appetite. They could just be lame in one leg, because if they start bleeding into a joint, they could be lame. They could just be a little bit quiet. It could just be really anything. So they're very in tune to their elephants, and anything that looks at all abnormal, they're going to let the vet staff know. And then we can get blood on them when we need to, or at a minimum weekly. We send that blood out for PCR. We look for the DNA in the blood. We look for DNA in the trunk washes to let us know that somebody's shedding. And then if they are susceptible, then we can keep an eye on those elephants even closer for a period of time after we have someone shedding in the herd. So we have a lot of opportunities, and then the ability to intervene. Unfortunately, with EEHV, not every elephant that gets EEHV HD or the hemorrhagic disease, not all of them survive, and it's not without around the clock care by the elephant care staff, veterinary staff. Zoos in the area, everybody's sending them plasma for plasma transfusions or whole blood transfusions. I mean, it's a big deal when you treat one and then they don't all survive. So, and it's heartbreaking because they're usually young elephants. Not that it wouldn't be heartbreaking with an older elephant, but it's the young elephants. And so we have that opportunity. But then the challenge is obviously you have this massive animal, and when you start calculating drug doses, we do everything in a milligram per kilogram of body weight for the most part. And so, when you've got a 3,000, pound animal, or 1,500 kilogram animal, and you're used to calculating things, and then we try to extrapolate with horse doses, and then suddenly your volumes of drugs and fluids.
Well, yeah, because
really large.
Because I would think.
Yeah. So that's a challenge.
That's the rectum, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's where it would be hard. So if I have a mammal under anesthesia, and then I'm going to calculate maybe 5 to 10 milliliters of fluids per kilogram per hour of fluids. If you do that math, Like you could never give that much IV fluids to an elephant.
Right.
Luckily, they don't seem to need as much as the smaller. Sometimes there's like body to surface ratio can affect drug delivery and drug absorption. So sometimes bigger things you don't need to give as much drugs as you do small things. And that's a whole other talk for another day. But yeah, so it would be really challenging to give the amount of fluids like IV the way you would do smaller mammals. And so we're lucky that we have a rectum that we can, train them. You put a hose in and you kind of provide fluids that way. A soft hose.
I promise not to clip that out. We're lucky to have a rectum we can train. That's fascinating. So what happens with what are the symptoms of this herpes virus when it does get wild and decides
it can be nothing, or it can be so it can just be non-specific signs, like maybe they're not eating as much, maybe they're not as like bright and alert and playful. If it's an elephant baby that's typically running around and playing, maybe it's a little bit quiet, it doesn't want to play, maybe it's lame, maybe it's acting colicky or like it has GI discomfort. And then when you get further down, like when the disease progresses more, you might see like a blue or purple tongue because they're just not able to transport blood, oxygen around in the blood. You could see blisters in the oral cavity. You could see retinal hemorrhages. And the reason why you see those signs is this is a herpes virus that attacks the inner lining of the blood vessels, and that's the endothelial tropic. So tropic tells you that means tells you that that's where it's going to go, and then the word in front of it is where it goes. So endothelial tropic. It's unusual for herpes viruses. A lot of times they affect mucosal membranes, or so like your mouth, your eye, like your eyelids, your conjunctiva. But this particular herpes virus attacks the inner lining of your blood vessels, and so then you can get leaky blood vessels. They don't work as well, and then you can get kind of internal bleeding.
Wow. So how sensitive is the trunk of an elephant? Is that a lot more prone to disease and infections and stuff?
No, not necessarily. It's sensitive in terms of like they're very dexterous with it, but not necessarily more sensitive to disease. But their trunk is basically like their nose, and so like their nares or their nostrils are just at the end of the trunk. So it's the entrance into their respiratory tract. Do
you ever have to inject them with anything, or like tranquilizers or anything like that?
Yeah.
Like how is their skin like
very thick?
It's really
yes.
Like how thick is?
It's probably, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's thick. I mean,
like 2 inches?
Yeah, somebody probably knows the exact.
But
it's
enough.
thick. We use long needles.
Wow.
And,
okay.
Yeah.
And then same
we try
thing.
to
Is
use
it like an
1.5 to 2
like,
inch needles to try to, if we want to do, usually we want to do intramuscular injections because the muscles have such a good blood supply.
Right.
So yeah, we try to do 1.5 to 2 inch needles. Usually because we can't get anything longer.
Okay.
But luckily, they're relatively sensitive to anesthesia drugs, so we can use smaller milligrams, and then we can also get concentrated anesthesia drugs, and so that means that we can use smaller volumes.
Huh. And then what happens when an elephant like wakes up from that? Is that a thing? Are they like?
Well, we try to reverse the drugs and take it away, so that we can. So a lot of the drugs that we use, we have like antidotes to them.
Oh.
So we try to take them away because we want them to get up pretty quickly and smoothly, and have them not stumble so they don't hurt themselves.
Right.
We do have a YouTube video. We did full anesthesia on one of our adult cows. It's still probably on. There's a YouTube video you can see, and it's a sort of synopsis of this whole anesthesia procedure.
Interesting.
We did a couple of years ago.
So what is the vaccine that is?
So yeah, it's an experimental vaccine for EEHV 1A. So there are several types of EEHV, and African elephants have their types, Asian elephants have theirs. So we have Asian elephants here at the zoo, and they can get 1, 4, and 5. And of 1, there's 1A and 1B, and 1A accounts for most of the deaths. Elephants have died from 1A, 1B, 4, and 5, but most of the deaths are 1A. So that's what the researcher who created the vaccine, who's Dr. Paul Ling down at Baylor College of Medicine, he created this vaccine. It's an mRNA vaccine, so like the COVID vaccines, and it has 4 different proteins in 4 different like herpes virus proteins, and in one vaccine. And then it went through, the zoo has an institutional animal care and use committee, like you would at like a research facility. And that just means that there's a group of us that review all research proposals that are involving any of the zoo's animals. And we confirm that it's responsible, there's no animal suffering, and we review it, and it got IACUC approved, and then we were able to give it to Brazos. And it was also approved by Dr. Ling's Baylor College of Medicine too, but we have our own IACUC that it has to go through. And then, we gave him 2 doses, 21 days apart, kind of like when we got our COVID vaccines, and then we've been monitoring Brazos's antibody levels monthly ever since.
And when was that?
The first vaccine was the end of August. The second vaccine was 3 weeks later in September.
Okay. So brand new. And
yes.
And is this the first elephant?
So he was, I think, the 4th elephant to get this vaccine. So Dr. Ling has a really close relationship with the Houston Zoo because he's down in Houston, and he has been working on EEHV for years. He's a human specialist in herpes viruses, and he got involved in the Houston Zoo's EEHV efforts, and he's like been pioneering in like the testing for it and antibody status in this vaccine. And so Brazos was the first elephant to get the vaccine that didn't have antibodies to EEHV 1A. So the elephants that got it at Houston already had antibodies to EEHV 1A, but Brazos didn't. So what happens is an elephant is born and he gets, like with humans, antibodies get passed through the placenta. So they get antibodies from mom to whatever EEHV she has or she's been exposed to. But then as they age, those antibodies, those maternal antibodies, they start to go away. And so what we've now figured out is that the elephants that tend to die from EEHV HD are the elephants that don't have antibodies to protect them. So if they get exposed and they're young and they still have mom's antibody, the immune system can kind of take care of it, and then they will just, we call it seroconvert, they'll develop their own antibodies, and then they'll probably be okay. But in the case of like Brazos, his mom's antibodies had already gone away before he was a year old. So then in my mind, he was just a ticking time bomb. And so then we were sending serology serum samples to Dr. Ling to check his antibody status. And he's like, he doesn't have any antibodies. Would you be interested in this experimental vaccine? And I was like, yes, please. And then I just, emailed him occasionally, like, hey, check again. Really want that vaccine for this animal.
Yeah.
So I could sleep better at night. And so, yeah, we were lucky. It made it easy that we were in the same state of Texas as Dr. Ling in Houston. And so we were able, and his staff was able to drive up and bring us the vaccine, and we collected blood and sent it back so he could do more, tests. And that was nice because we're in driving distance. And then after Brazos got his vaccine, more elephants got it, but he was the first to get it that didn't have the antibodies.
Do you ever think about, while you're doing that, sticking a little Botox in there too, just to see like what are all the wrinkles about?
Oh, that's just their skin. I think it helps protect them against sun probably, or and it helps hold like the mud. And, yep.
Interesting. So what if you have what's the advantage of the mRNA vaccine? It's like kind of faster in terms of
faster in terms of
if you have
putting
one
it
antibody,
together.
but now there's another one that's kind of the one that's proliferating, like human flu is going to be different every year or whatever. Is So it's kind of because potentially if this works well, then you would you could potentially give it a vaccine for the 3 other variants.
Yes. He focused
as opposed to just the one antibody that they already have.
Yes, he's focusing on 1A because it's the one that causes the most deaths. And unfortunately, he doesn't have a vaccine yet for the African elephants that get 2, 3, 6, and 7. And as there's more breeding of African elephants in human care now, there's more successful breeding. They're also now dealing with EEHV deaths. And so he is working, but everything that we're learning in Asian elephants that he applies to the African elephants.
Is this a harder problem with zoos, for elephants in zoos with the herpes spread, or is it easier to in terms of how easy it's spreading in the wild versus?
So they have it in the wild. What we think is that the larger the herd is, the more exposed the calves get when they are young and still have mom's antibodies. And so we've been talking about this idea of an elephant kindergarten to expose elephants to more EEHV. And so in the wild, if they are in bigger herds, then there's more chance that they're going to be exposed when they're young and they still have mom's antibodies. And then if they have those antibodies, usually the immune system can handle it if they get exposed again. It's just when they have no antibodies. And for our purposes, where we have smaller herds in human care, we might need to give them the vaccine to boost their immune system if they're not getting it already.
And how would they get lethargic or whatever after receiving it for a couple days or anything?
No, Brazos had nothing. He had no
Interesting.
issues.
You think the immune system would rev up a little bit?
Yeah, and whether he did, and we just couldn't detect it, but we didn't notice anything. I watched him for 30 minutes after each vaccine to make sure he didn't have some sort of anaphylactic reaction, and he didn't. And then the keepers kept a really close eye on him, and they never saw anything.
So the COVID vaccine has, the largest sample size of anything that there's ever been, and so it's easier to tease apart and given interest in taking the time to do it, you can check whatever headline or whatever podcast or attention grabbing thing against the largest data set in human history.
Right. And it's a good way of thinking about it.
And discern what is reality. But how are you going to know if this is working with?
Right. So we won't necessarily know unless he gets exposed. Unless we know that he gets exposed.
It's not working, maybe, then.
And
so then it's falsified, basically?
Right. If he were to get EEHV-1A, now that he had the vaccine, and he were to die from EEHV-1, then you wonder if the vaccine is working. And again,
because any vaccine isn't going to necessarily stop an infection, but it should ready the immune system's memories
and we don't want to necessarily stop the infection, right? We want him to get antibodies so that he is protected for life. But we just don't want him to die from it. So we want
a well-trained immune system to be prepared for when an infection happens.
Exactly. And we won't really know until enough elephants get the vaccine, and then we see our survival rates increasing.
You get a call from me a year from now, and I'm I screwed up. I intellectually knew getting a baby elephant was a bad idea. Here we are. I'm very sorry, but
what do I do with this 1,000-pound animal?
There's some. It seems to be a little tired or exhibiting some sickness. What's as a vet? Is every situation completely different where you start? Or is there like a checklist of the first things that you look at specifically for elephants?
Yeah, so if they're young and susceptible to EEHV, a lot of the serious cases or deaths are like 1 to 8 years old, but they can be a little older. So we have Belle, who was born in 2013, and she's still on my list as susceptible. But yeah, so the first thing I want blood work. I want, like a rectal temperature would be great, but I want blood, and I want to do a complete blood cell count, or a CBC, and I want to look at the total white blood cell count. I want to look at the monocytes, and I want to look at their heterophils, which are like other mammals' neutrophils, and I want to look at the ratio of those, and also maybe is there anemia, and I'm also going to send it for PCR. And that's the great thing, is we have our own PCR lab here on grounds. So it used to be that if we had a case and we were worried, and inevitably it was a Saturday or a holiday when you can't ship things to DC where the National Herpes Lab is, we would drive them either down to Dr. Ling's lab or up to the Oklahoma City Zoo, because they had their own lab. But now we have a lab on ground. So if I have a case and I'm worried that they might have EEHV, I can run it in-house and have the results in a couple of hours. But that's the first thing I'm going to look at is that CBC, and my technicians will run that. We have an automated machine, so we can put the blood in there. Within minutes, I can at least get the total white count. And I forgot to mention platelets. That's the other big one, is I want to look at their platelets.
What's that?
Platelets, or that help you clot. They help the blood clot.
I'm not familiar.
Okay.
What's a platelet?
So in mammals, there are these little fragments of cells, and they help clot. So they're what kind of go, if you're bleeding, they'll travel, and then they'll help blood clots form. So what happens with EEHV is we get abnormal clotting, because again, the inside lining of the blood vessels is abnormal, and so blood starts leaking out, and so then the body starts like trying to patch, and so it sort of simultaneously clots more than it should, but then also clots less than it should. And in a lot of the cases where the elephants die, they end up with something called disseminated intravascular coagulation, which is abbreviated to DIC. And you're taught in vet school that DIC stands for death is coming. If you start seeing an animal that's in DIC, you're like, oh, this isn't good.
I hate coagulation. It's just, are there good coagulation?
Yes,
You want coagulation.
Yes, you want like the good, but you don't necessarily, everything in life, too much.
Otherwise it'd be like, what's the, I'm forgetting the giant lizard, oh my gosh,
the
Komodo dragons, because isn't that
one of those things? Some snake venom.
They disrupt the ability to coagulate.
Yes. Like most things in life, you want the right amount of something, right? Grandma always said everything in moderation.
Yeah.
And so you want the right amount of clotting. You don't want too little, because then you bleed to death, or you don't want too much, because these little blood clots like lodge in the tiny little arteries of your body, the little capillaries, and then the blood can't get through, and then if that happens, and it happens in your lungs, like you can die. So you want the right amount of clotting, and EEHV upsets the clotting mechanisms.
Because we have to wrap up, I'm curious. You have all sorts of important stuff you got to throw on off to. What when you are at a social gathering and people find out that you are a veterinarian that works with elephants, what's the level of interest?
I would say a lot of people are very interested.
Because I talked with a bonobo person a couple episodes ago, and it's like she can't. I mean, it's like don't invite her to the party unless you want everyone to congregate around a bonobo.
I do sometimes kind of feel bad.
It's just, because it's. I mean, it must even, because do you ever go to like veterinary conferences and stuff? Do they kind of not like you, like that you like hoard some of the attention, or
I think that
because if you're just like working on a cat or dog or whatever, and then the elephant vet comes in, it's like, well,
maybe. Maybe. I don't know. I think I
think that's what a fascinating job. How did you get into it?
Well, I went to vet school with
right,
the plan
vet
of
school.
being a zoo vet and working.
Oh, so you wanted to be,
Yeah.
it wasn't vet first, it was zoo first and then
zoo
vet?
first. And this is a second career for me.
Okay.
So it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And,
yeah, I'm still working on that.
Yeah.
I might be applying here.
Yeah. I hear you. I mean, sometimes it just takes a while. I was sort of jealous of my friends that like went to college and were like, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a doctor. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
And eventually, I was watching Animal Planet and Julia Roberts was like hugging baby orangutan. And I was like, ooh, I want to do that. And I'm like, and something tells me I'm probably not going to be the next Julia Roberts. So then how do I do that and not be Julia Roberts? And I came up with zoo medicine.
Yeah.
And, but I was in my master's degree in Ireland and Irish heritage management. And I was like, oh, maybe I should just get a job. I've never had a job. And I did that for a couple of years, went to the Middle East and was like, you know what? I think I called my parents from Kuwait and I was like, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to be a vet. And they're like, well, we never even gave you animals. And they're like, don't you want to be a dentist? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
And
wow.
then years later, vet school and then,
How old were you when you started vet school?
In my early 30s.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I was the
inspiring.
third oldest person in my class.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, so cool.
I did a small animal internship, I did a zoo internship, a zoo residency, and then I've been here ever since.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time and for what you do, and I hope the vaccines are a success.
Me too.
My intuition, which I'm unhappily willing to be falsified.
You're good with your assumptions.
But they, I think that with the mRNA vaccines, it's going to change the world of veterinary medicine tremendously.
Yes, I agree. And I think this vaccine is going to be a game changer.
Yeah.
Even if it has to be tweaked. I mean, I think we now have a vaccine. It's been something we've been looking for years. And now we can say we have one. And you got to start somewhere. So it's amazing.
Well, best of luck. That's very exciting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the episode, everybody. Check out mypurplelady.com if you want to get high on my supply. And again, check out Randal Roberts. He does some amazing portraits with kind of psychedelic flair, and he does commissions and live painting events. And LoganRayKeith.com for any audio engineering needs that you may have. And okay, so if you're not regularly a listener to this show, started first episode by talking about how I had discovered a forgotten holiday from the Middle Ages, where over a few hundred years before the Catholic Church eventually deemed it too irreverent to exist, there was a celebration of the donkeys of the Bible and also just of our companion, our hardworking animal companion friends that have gotten humans where they are today. And it was January 14th of each year, and that festival was called Feast of the Ass. And I'm really left with no choice but to resurrect this thing. And ever since I've thought of it, like, okay, yeah, Feast of the Ass, okay, ass feasting, funny. But guys, the more seriously I try to take the donkey aspect of it and like do donkey research, I just went to a ranch that has miniature donkeys in Santa Fe. I'm gonna try to like collaborate with them. I'm going to a donkey sanctuary here in Phoenix. It's just hilarious, and these ideas keep on coming to me, and I have other people involved now. And so I don't know what next year is going to be. A lot depends on how this year goes for me with the special release and stuff like that. But I don't care. It's a pilgrimage to Phoenix. If you go to shanemoss.com and join the email list, I will provide more details when I have them. Kind of my broad overall idea is, rather than having like a big ticketed festival where, I need to line up a zillion things and bands and insurance and porta potties and food trucks and all the stuff for like a week, which I've done in the past, and it's a lot of fun but a ton of work and really high risk. I thought that this could be something that is a lot more organic and can scale. And so I am putting together an actual, like ticketed event for January 14th on the feast, and it's going to be absolutely incredible. What I'm I'm putting together is so ridiculous. The venue is like jaw-dropping, amazing, that I've been touring and working with, and like just absolutely incredible. And I don't even want to say any more than that. But outside of that, I just want to have fun get-together. So like you're on your own to get yourself to Phoenix, to like get, hotel, Airbnb, that sort of thing. Start planning that now, because otherwise life happens fast. The holidays will come around. You'll spend everything in December on Christmas gifts and all that, and be burnt out on the holidays. And just when you need it the most, January 14th, I'm building it all with those sorts of things in mind, all with that you'll have just made the New Year's resolutions and the kind of January energy that you have and the burnout from the holidays. All of that, have all of that in mind. But if you commit to it now, just to yourself, I'm not asking you to sign up for anything or buy tickets or anything else. Just look into it, mark your calendar, and we'll put together some organic things. Like I'll coordinate things with, say, like the Desert Botanical Garden here to have some private gatherings and functions here. We'll reserve like a park in town and that sort of thing. It's January in Phoenix. So where else would you rather be in mid-January? I'm from Wisconsin. I know most of you want to get out of the cold in January. It's such a good idea. I've been driving around checking out some national parks and things like that as well, for us to meet up in places. And it'll probably like evolve over getting like a Discord going and stuff, and getting you guys involved in creating the ideas. And I'll know a lot more about all of this by April, May. Basically everything's kind of waiting on my special being finished still, which is 3 months later than I thought it was going to be. But that's going to tell me a lot about how this year is going to go for me. And it's, I want to start sharing ideas for it. So I'm going to have to, I think that we'll maybe do some like virtual meetups over Zoom and stuff. I've liked doing that in the past. Kind of liked doing Discord stuff. It can turn into a lot to manage, and like 5 people can like take it over and stuff, and it can be a whole thing sometimes. But I'm sorting that out, feeling out what I have bandwidth for. And that's also why I'm only doing this show, now that we're up and running. I'm doing it every other week so that I can also find time to do some social media posts and start putting some energy into getting the word out there about this show and how we can start building community around this show as well, so that you can, like, here's I'll give you an example of one of the things that I kind of want to encourage about this gathering. I want everyone to just have, think of it as like a book report. Just read some book about an animal. Just pick a species. I was talking with Randal Roberts yesterday about capybaras versus tapir, and I think tapirs are on their way up right now in the public zeitgeist. I think I'm putting money into tapirs, and based on their popularity. I think that you can kind of get on the ground floor of tapir popularity right now. I think donkeys are sturdy investment, always going to be there. And there's going to be some peaks and some dips, but I'm being ridiculous right now. How long have I been talking for about this? This is such a ridiculous show. Okay, this is all right. This is going on for too long. Is this performance art that I'm doing? I don't know. Anyhow, I'm putting together the Feast of the Ass for January 14th of next year. I will start making some social posts about this show, so you're not just one of 200 people listening or whatever. I'll get you get to right now. You get to say that you're one of the first. And also it's a show about animals and evolution. Let's face it, this is a niche show for that isn't. It's not going to be some blockbuster. Oh, guys, I just got I just got I got an alert the other day that get this. Hold on. What did it say? Oh my God, this is so funny. Hold on. Okay. I took a screenshot. I gotta find this. I'm an old man who's like I don't navigate phones swiftly. I got an email about this. Come on now. Oh, from some when you have a podcast, I don't even know how they find your email or whatever. They just give you updates. They try to encourage you to keep going or whatever, get you all excited. I imagine you can pay for things to do this or that and increase your popularity and whatnot. But I got this notification from the last episode about amphibians. When listeners search for amphibians on Apple Podcast or Spotify, Inshanely Curious appears as result number 30. Look at us making waves out there. It's coming along, guys. Check out My Purple Lady. Check out mypurplelady.com. Check out some Blue Lotus products. I'll tell you more about mypurplelady.com at some point. I just got to do a solo episode. But for now, all you need to know is I'm kind of just doing the steps necessary to be able to take advantage of what I view is opportunities to create new kinds of recreation. Essentially, I think that the dependency on alcohol and nicotine, which aren't going anywhere and are going to stick around, but the dependency on them for live entertainment and everything else is problematic. And I think that there's other ways out there to catch a buzz and let loose a little bit and do it in a more safe manner without losing your head so much. And I'm especially as someone putting together a psychedelic special, I have a long history of doing insane kind of otherworldly huge psychonaut type like really serious journeying and adventuring and everything. But I've just really come to appreciate that sometimes I just want to like little alteration of sorts. I don't want some big challenging thing, and I want to be able to like still function and be in social situations and think right, but just to have a little something, like once a week, just have a little something to feel a little bit different, and just something to make me notice my smile a little bit, just to feel like a little lightness in the body type of thing. I'm trying to find more things like that, and I have like 5 things that I kind of like, and the R&D development depends on like kind of how much money I have from other stuff coming in, the popularity of the product that we have now. And what I'd like to do is like make drinks and stuff. So kind of my dream is to have comedy clubs serving drinks that I think are kind of lend themselves to loosening people up and being like smile enhancers and social enhancers without having to like be around like sloppy drunk people and people poor judgment and ruining shows and in poor taste and that sort of thing. It's a pipe dream, honestly, but it's one that I've come to believe in a little bit. And I actually do think that there's opportunities out there. And the reason why that there's opportunities is because no one's really looking for that exactly. They're looking in a lot of different directions. And everyone's trying to like cure you and cure this and that. And it's all just that no one's discovering a supplement that's going to cure some sort of like cancer or something like that scientists aren't already like way on top of. That's someone peddling some nonsense to you. But what academia isn't looking at, what there isn't science labs developing, what the FDA is not searching for is a new kind of buzz, and one that's focused on harm reduction a little bit, and while still like having fun. That's that, I'm actually glad that there's focus on fixing the biggest problems in the world in a scientific way, as imperfect and sometimes corruptible and everything else as that may be. But boy, we could use some new ways to have fun. And I'm not saying I'm the person to do that, but I am someone that believes in that enough to do what I can to start figuring out how to like turn that into a little bit of a business, you know, and it's kind of fun and exciting. And so yeah, that's what I've been working on a little bit, and I've decided to couch it at the end of a episode about elephant herpes, because I just don't exactly know what to say about it in a short, concise way that doesn't also like put myself on the hook for things and everything else. So that's what I'm working on. Go to mypurplelady.com and get some products today. Offer code ELEPHANT. Yeah, you can remember that. Let's do free shipping. Why not? I can do that. Okie dokie, guys. I hope you subscribe and spread the word to all of your friends interested in elephant herpes. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Maybe we'll switch back to weekly eventually at some point. Honestly, that's just because that's like the demand that people want. People want a weekly show, and and you build habits, and then it becomes a regular part of your life, and then it's like, and then you don't think about it, and then you miss it when it's not there, and it's this automatic thing that you do every Tuesday or whatever. You know, there's all these appeals to like get you guys on the hook for things, but then I'm on the hook too. What are we on the hooks for? This show's about like fun and learning stuff, and it just feels right to me. If I can sit outside, look at this book that I'm reading. If I can sit outside and have time to like read this full book, I can't read this full book and write notes and stuff on it in 1 week, and then record and then post things and do all the other stuff. Yeah, I can have a team, but then I want to read this book. This book, Shamanism, A Timeless Religion, Manbir Sai, who's been on the Here We Are podcast, anthropologist who's been around studying shamans cross-culturally. So fascinating, absolutely interesting. Speaking of like substances and subjective effects and priming and influences and setting. This is I get these, see these, this is uncorrected, unbound proof, not for sale. I get things hot off the press before they come out. So this book comes out in May. So I'm getting ready to go up to UC Davis in a while to interview him, and so from here I'm going to I'm going to be here for like another week doing a couple interviews. Then I'm going to go to LA and take some meetings about my special, see some friends, probably do some. I haven't done as much camping in my van as I thought I was going to, which is I guess a good. It's nice to have friends that I can crash with and stuff instead, but I am also looking at spending a bunch of time in some national and state parks, and I kind of want to like maybe have some rangers and stuff on the show as well. Just trying to get down to that nature thing while we still can. And so yeah, that's everything, and the reason why I'm bad at being like and done is because 1, I don't plan, and 2, sometimes more fun things to talk about spring into my head just as I'm wrapping up. So thanks for indulging me in all this. Yay, you guys are awesome.